I get a lot of requests for more information about the build of my chicken coop. So this video I will try to attempt to give a little more detail about how I built it. So I'll start from the ground up. First of all, my coop is located on a slope. So my first concern was that whatever I build here needed to be anchored in the ground so that it doesn't slide down the slope. So that's where I started. On the four corners, I dug down only about a foot. I'm not making footings for anything like a patio or anything, so I didn't need to go down too deep. But I dug down about a foot, put some gravel in, put in my 4x4 posts, and filled them in. Then between the posts, all four posts, I dug a trench for this these pavers. These are 9 by 12 by about 1.5 inches thick pavers that are stuck down in a trench, and I used a string level to get them all to the same height. And the purpose of those is to prevent any kind of animal from digging under, and that those pavers go all the way around the coop on all four sides. Then I used some of this 1/2-inch hardware cloth here on 3 of the sides to also prevent digging. After the pavers went in, I put in this 2x6 pressure treated lumber on top of the pavers and just screwed them into the four corners. So that gave me my basic base. Then I moved up to the roof and built some rafters in there. Pretty simple rafter construction. Just 2x4s, regular lumber, not pressure treated. I only used pressure treated where I was in contact with the ground. So the 4x4s and the 2x6s down there are pressure treated. Everything else is just standard 2x4. Then the roof panels are translucent sun tuff panels. And across the top of the rafters I have these 1x2s that were used to secure the panels. These panels, I have 4 of them. You can see them up here. And they're 12 feet long. I dimensioned the roof so I didn't have to do any cutting of any panels and didn't have any weird seams halfway. So this roof is 12 foot long, just undersized a little bit so that the panels overhang. You can see I didn't get a very good job of getting this roof to be square because the panels are kind of zigzagging down here. That was the hardest part of the construction, was getting everything squared up. So once I had the roof in place, then I started the uprights for the door here. Just used 2x4s. Everything's screwed together because hammering on this tended to make things kind of want to fall apart. So I used screws everywhere, deck screws for the outdoors. One detail on this 1/2-inch hardware cloth is I attach it to the structural members of the coop and then cover the edges with this either 1x4 or 1x6, depending on the dimension. I may split it, or sorry, rip it to the proper width. But everywhere where there's a seam, for the hardware cloth, there's a seam running right down here where there's 2 pieces are stapled onto the 2x4. I cover it with this 1x4. And that keeps a nice clean edge so that people aren't getting injured by the sharp edges of the hardware cloth. You can see up here where I stapled it, here, there's no hands or feet gonna come up here, or little animals, but you can see the sharp points that you get when you cut the hardware cloth. And if that were anywhere else down where people are, like this kind of thing up here is fine. This was an edge that I didn't cut. That was the machine or the factory cut edge. But up here, where I had to cut it, I can't get it in that close. So you get these sharp points that can be a hazard. So all along the bottom here on the inside where it was stapled down, I covered that edge with the 1x6 all the way around before I put in the sand. So I framed out the door, and the opposite wall has these upright posts here, and another one over here that you can't see because it's part of the hen house. Then I began construction on the hen house, so I'll open up the door here so I can get a good view of that. So I began by framing out the floor. Okay, there you can see the framing for the floor. Just regular 2x4s. Using standard construction techniques of, at least 16" on center. I think that these are a little bit closer together. And I used this 1x6 tongue and groove pine siding for the floor. But I did cover that with vinyl. Let's see if I can dig out a little hole here. You get a lot of moisture buildup inside here, so to protect the wood, we put down just some cheap vinyl flooring. And I didn't use glue or anything to secure it. I just have some screws and a few corners. Let me see if I can get to one here. I think it's starting to tear away. There's a screw right there, just to hold it in place. When I constructed the walls with 2x4s, I didn't lay, normally in a standard construction, when you use a 2x4, obviously, you're going to lay it this way. But to preserve room, make it so the walls aren't taking up so much space, I turned the 2x4s the other direction. Because this 1x6 siding is pretty structurally strong as it is anyway. Then, once I had the walls framed out all the way up to the roof, then I began to put in the flooring, the side panels, some windows. Kind of have to use your imagination for a lot of this stuff. I didn't drop any plans. I just made it up as I went along. The door here was really kind of a hack job trying to put together. But anybody who's halfway competent in construction can probably figure something out on their own without too much help. For the door, in addition to the 1x6 tongue and groove siding, I also have these 1x4s that are also part of the structure of the door. I used plastic here instead of glass for safety, and also some 1/2" hardware cloth on the window if we want to open it for ventilation. We don't like to use chicken wire for our coop because raccoons can reach through chicken wire and tear up chickens. So there's 1/2" hardware cloth everywhere around, even along the bottom here. Inside the chicken coop we have two roosts at 2 different levels, staggered so they aren't dropping on each other during the night. And these are removable, if I can get it out. And they're just in these little saddles. I made them removable because sometimes I need to climb in here to do work. Got a couple chickens in a nest box. These nest boxes, if I can get these chickens out of the way, looks like they're sitting. But there is a, hello ladies, there's a kind of a, there's a 2x4 barrier here kind of to hold all the nesting material in the box and the bedding in the coop out of the box. We have hay. We use straw and pine shavings in the hen house, and then the nest is, we have some pine shavings and hay. We used to use straw in there, but the straw is a little too coarse, and they do make do with it though. There's some pecking going on here or something. They got into some kind of argument or something. So I ran a wire, you can see it just right here. The chickens kind of move it around. This is a heavy duty extension cord. It gets buried under the ground here. Up the wall here. It goes along the fence line. You can't see it. Goes out through the rocks there. Runs up the side. I'm sure this probably violates some codes, but not a big deal. Then up into this box, this junction box here. Then from the junction box, we have it running up along the top here into the hen house. And into the hen house, along the top here, and over to another junction box where I have a timer for my light. This one over here powers my camera. I need to clean that plastic off. And also the heater. Now that we're in spring, the heater isn't getting any use at all. It's on a thermostat. This box up here, I'm going to climb inside. This box here is a thermostat. It comes on when it's freezing. And the heater itself, the way it's mounted, I had to get creative because one of my concerns was, since it's a ceramic heater and it gets, you know, it'll expand as it warms up. The difference in thermal expansion between ceramic and wood, I was concerned that if I attach it directly to the wood, that it might cause cracking where the screws are attached. So I made a floating system. And I don't think I can take it apart because it's with one hand here, but I have each of the screws attached to a block here and here that is secured in a tongue and groove in this rail. We've got the tongue here that secures it and allows it to float and slide if necessary. So if the ceramic plate begins to grow from thermal expansion, it can float and shift in that rail instead of cracking. Yes, I'm in your space. I'll get out. One other design consideration was having some kind of a barrier here to hold back the bedding. I made this so that it can be removed. It slides up and out of the way, so it's easily scooped out. Instead of having to try to lift the bedding material out, you can just lift this panel out. Also on the nests, I'm not really happy with some of the problems we have with this little roof on the nest box. So I might redo this roof eventually. But we get some rain, we got a lot of rain here, but only about this half down gets wet from the overhang. The overhang up here protects most of it, but when the rain comes in at an angle, it gets wet to about up here. You can see there's some staining going on here from mildew or mold. It's actually not that bad right now. I've seen it worse. This one over here looks a little worse. But if it starts to become too bad and rot, I'll just put on some kind of plastic panel here too. This locks to keep curious critters out. And there they are fighting some more. But the lid lifts so that you can reach in and get the eggs. They don't like to use this one. They just use these two. They used to only use this one. Also, I can't show it right now because I have one hand holding the lid and the other holding the camera, but this panel here is hinged on the bottom and secured with some barrel bolts inside. So you just undo the bolts and the whole wall comes down to make it easy to clean out the why isn't this locked? Clean out the nest boxes. The last thing is the pop door here, this sliding pop door. This is used to keep the coop or the hen house warm on colder nights and as an extra barrier of defense against things that might try to get into the hen house. But it just is a piece of plywood that slides in this rail. Very simple construction, and I have it lifted by a string that runs outside and over to here where I can unhook it and I can lower it at night and raise it in the mornings. We chose to go with this translucent sun Tuff panels for the roof so that the chickens have an abundance of light. But one of the problems we've noticed in the summer is that the sun shines right inside of the nest boxes and makes them really kind of uncomfortable. You can see them, they kind of huddle up in a corner to get under the shade. So I put in this retractable awning here, which is just a retractable window shade. I have never retracted it though, so I don't think it's necessary to make it retracting. I'm thinking of replacing it with some white cloth or something a little bit less plasticky. One of the problems with this vinyl was it really smelled when I first installed it as it outgassed. I didn't like the smell, but it's pretty stable now. And there's the ramp. The little rungs on this ramp are rounded off to make them easier, more comfortable for the chickens to walk on, and they're spaced 3 inches apart so that there's not too much room for the chickens to slide. I attached this ramp using a method that I can use as a hinge so the ramp can lift up. You can see that it's off the ground down there if we need it to lift for cleaning. Also, if I want to take the ramp out, all I have to do is remove a couple cotter pins here. There's one on the other side. And so I can do this one-handed here. I got it wedged in there. But if I have 2 hands, it's a lot easier. But this rod comes out. It's just an aluminum rod. And there's a chicken walking on the ramp. And then the whole thing can lift out. You see I have these eye screws here that the rod fits through. And that's what secures the ramp in place. Also, I installed an outdoor roost that can lift out of the way. It goes up and attaches up here to make it easier to clean out the inside. Secure it up. And now there's space to rake out and clean the ground. We put in play sand, just regular sand, and some straw. Gives them something to scratch around in. Keeps them dry. The food is hanging from underneath, and I've showed this watering bucket before, just hanging by a chain all the way from up there. But it keeps the water up off the ground and uses these little chicken nipples for water. That is everything. I hope that answers everyone's questions.